What is going on, Pretender here, back with another Honkai style guide, and today I'm here with the should use summon for the upcoming 3.2 first half character being Castorice. Castorice is going to be a part of the anniversary update and is going to be the brand new DPS coming to the game, and so I'm sure a lot of people are wondering if they should or should not summon for her. So in this video I'm going to briefly go over her kit. I won't be going over it exactly like how I do in my build guides. This video is going to generally assume you do know what her kit is like, but I still will be going over it, highlighting good parts of it and how she kind of works. Then I'll be going over some pros and cons about her, and then finally I'll be talking about whether you should or should not summon, with giving you multiple scenarios and where you should and should not summon. That's all I want to say. Before I get to the video, if you guys found this video helpful in any way, shape, or form, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all other types of Star Up content and guides. And let's get straight into the video. So as I already mentioned, Castorice is going to be a brand new DPS who does actually contain a Memo Sprite summon just like Aglia, but they do function a bit differently. Aglia is mainly a crit DPS that does mainly joint attacks with the summon, with building up speed and acting a lot. Castorice is also actually a crit DPS, but she scales off HP and is a HP drain based DPS, where her whole playstyle is to drain enough HP to actually charge her ultimate, because she has a unique ultimate to summon her Netherwing, which is the name of the summon, and the Netherwing is actually going to be the main source of damage itself. Playstyle does change a bit whether you do have Eidolons or not, but the way you practically do it is you recycle the actual summon by getting it to attack, because when you do attack, the more HP you have, the more charge you can actually use with its attack, and the more you do actually use it, the further down the bar will go, and if you deplete it all the way to 0, it will self-destruct and do a big attack. And so you kind of have it go 3 times, you pop the skill, you have it go again later to go again after that. You practically do that about 3 times, and then at the 3rd time, it's guaranteed going to blow up because you can't do anything else. And as I mentioned previously, as it does blow up, that's when the big damage does come out. She does really good damage with the other hits too, but the big explosion one is where she gets her most damage. Castorice herself does not actually do too much damage. Her actual skill is okay. The way that she can do good damage though is if you do have the summon out. And Castorice herself does get to actually act, because her skill does become enhanced if the summon is on the field, and that skill does some devastating damage. If the summon is not active and it's just her normal skill, it doesn't do too much damage. The main purpose of the skill is to consume everyone on your team's HP to actually charge the charge for the summon, which is via your ultimate. The way you get it is either using the technique and going into battle, then it's going to be active, and then past that it's going to be getting enough charge to where you are able to use the ultimate, and that's when she does summon it. She does also have a whole kind of like domain, where anyone in that actual domain has a all-type res reduction by 20%. So that's also good to benefit any sub-DPS you may have on the team as well. There is a bit of dual DPS synergy you can use. Her best playstyle is with hyper carry, but you actually are able to do dual DPS with someone like Mira. But the all-type res reduction is going to be the main benefit to her, and then if you have Tribi follow-up attacks going, it's going to benefit her damage a bit as well, and so on. So the entire point is to actually get the Netherwing to act as much as possible. You're going to recycle it every 3 turns, and then after the 3rd time you do use it, it does self-destruct. You are actually able to self-destruct it right away if you just deplete the entire charge, but usually that's not how you do it. There are some cases where you can do it, but usually it's not. From what I have seen, it's usually if you have something like E2 or higher. In those cases, self-destructing it right away can be a playstyle, and it still is, but usually always it's best to keep it up as long as possible, as that is again Castorice's main source of damage. She is also a fully AoE character, so you are actually hitting everyone on the field. So if you are someone that's lacking AoE, that's going to be something you can consider well. And then the last thing I do want to talk about her kit is her unique global passive. Disregarding all the controversy regarding it, if you do summon Castorice, you do gain access to a global revive that will activate whether Castorice is or not on your team. She does not have to be on your team, you just have to own her. The way it does work is if someone on your team or multiple people on your team do get killed in battle, so let's say you get hit with a single target where it just knocks on one, or a big AoE where in that action it takes out all your characters, Castorice does have her global passive proc, where it will actually revive them and put them in the moon cocoon state. And in that state, you have to actually have the allies that are down and in that state to get healing or get a shield. Because if you don't, the next time they do act, they will just die. So you have a bit of a window to heal them or give them a shield. So if you're to sustain this run, then you most likely will die. But that's not a lot of the player base. Most people do always have a sustain. So if you have Aventurine proc a shield on your current team, or you have someone like Wofu heal, or just anyone that does heal them out of the moon cocoon state, they will stay active for the battle. They will no longer be downed. So that's a big buff for anyone that may consider actually getting, where you don't actually have to use her, you just have access to a free revive, which will make endgame content if you do die in it significantly easier, as now you do have access to a free revive. So that's another thing on top of her actual being a character to use in battle as a main DPS. As a little side thing, you can consider that as well. Now talking about some pros and cons for Castorice. A very big pro is she is fully a AoE based character, as I did mention. This game is very AoE centric, so the fact that everything she does, her skill, her enhanced skill, once you do have Netherwing out, Netherwing attack itself, obviously everything besides her basic attack is going to be fully AoE. So if you are struggling in the AoE department, maybe you're someone that used single target for the longest time but now can't keep up with it, that's going to be a great thing you can consider. Another thing to consider is her damage output is very nice. It's a bit on the slower end because, you know, you have recycling the dragon, but it's high enough to the point where it being slower is definitely warranted, and it still does a good amount of damage. So her damage output is going to be a fantastic thing you can consider as well. As with Netherwing just attacking, it's going to do good damage. If you have Netherwing out and you use the enhanced skill, it's going to do a lot of damage there as well. Once the Netherwing does actually explode, it's going to do a bunch of damage there as well. So full AoE, very good damage output is a great thing to consider. Another good thing to consider is she does get a lot better with vertical investment. She has really good E1, really good E2, light cone, very much wanted, which I will also put that in the con section. I will list that a bit once I do get to the con section. But if you're someone that wants to vertically invest in her, it's a great idea. And another pro is technically the global passive just being able to benefit you regardless of what you are. If you ever mess up in your run and you die, you now have a safety net. If you're someone that already dies often in the end game, you have a safety net. Or you can be someone that never dies at all, but you know, maybe you mess up one time or the auto messes up if you're using it, then you have a safety net there. So that's another thing you can consider. And now something I want to talk about that is a bit on the balance of a pro and con. It's more in the middle where it could really just be depending on what everyone has. Is a lot of her good teammates are free to play. Like her best team actually can have 2 free to play characters. And then Castorice and plus one other is going to be a big pay to play side, obviously being premium. So it's mainly with their team. So you have RMC, which is one of, if not her best teammate, or at least a little under than the premium option I'm going to mention that you actually run beside each other. RMC is a free E6, fantastic unit, so that's going to be a great team slot. And then for a sustain on the team, because you definitely want to sustain for her, one of the best ones, if not the best one, is also Gallagher, who is also a free option as well, and is also a 4-star who's a lot more accessible, so practically free dupes. You get the E2, you get the access to cleanse, which you really want, and you can also get up to E6. But a big part of her damage is actually Tribby, specifically E1 Tribby. Without E1 Tribby, she still does fine. If you have an E0 Tribby or if you don't have Tribby at all, she still does do good. But without E1 Tribby, the big portion of her kit is actually relatively on the smaller side, at least when it comes to damage wise. Like she still performs fine as I mentioned, but without E1 Tribby, you will notice significantly less damage, as there isn't really any HP related supports. So the best things we do have is stuff that Tribby provides, and especially with the access to true damage, you will have access to true damage thanks to what RMC does, but Tribby's works differently and is a bit better, especially when you are doing high amounts of damage. So that's one thing you definitely want to consider as well. If you don't have Tribby or you're using Tribby and maybe you don't have E1, that's something you want to consider as well. It's really on the fine line because a good part of the team is free to play, while a good part of the best team is also a bit premium. But now on the con side, I did mention being vertically investments being good, but a thing is she very much wants her light cone, or at least the battle pass remembrance light cone. If you do not have access to either of those, none of the other remembrance options are good, and the best thing you can do is to give her the highest HP scaling light cone you do have, and not HP scaling but HP base stat, such as the Bailu light cone. That's literally the next best option you can do. She has next to no options. The only option is the battle pass light cone, which is paid, or the actual signature light cone, which is significantly better than the battle pass light cone. And so at a early level, you definitely want to consider having that. So an E0 S0 is going to be significantly weaker than an E0 S1. She is one of the bigger characters that do get a big buff from her light cone. And if you do not have the access to actually getting the battle pass, so if you're a free-to-play player and you just can't get the battle pass, then you are really working with no options right now. So that's going to be a current issue con, especially once there are new remembrance light cones, you'll have more options, but for now and for a little while longer, you will be stuck. Another con is if you're someone that's summoned for Sunday specifically for Castorice, because there's a lot of people who actually did that. One thing you want to consider is if you don't actually have E1 Sunday, he is not the best option on the best teams. He is still good, but a thing is you definitely want to consider the fact that his ultimate does not actually work on her properly. As the way the dragon self-destructs, it doesn't actually keep the ult uptime on that actual summon, so a lot of times the summon won't actually have the ultimate buff. And on top of that, the energy given is wasted since Castorice does have a unique ult. So if you are one of those people that did summon for Sunday for Castorice, that is another thing you do want to consider. But if you do have the E1, it becomes a lot stronger because now you have that actual buff, and with the skill buff being on them is a lot more easier since you recycle that a lot more as opposed to the ultimate, which is every 3 turns or so. That's one thing you definitely want to consider as well. And another con you want to consider is if you don't actually have a good sustain. Castorice does drain a lot of HP. She drains a lot of the team's HP, so if you are against something like MOC, a higher MOC like 11 or 12, and you don't actually have a good sustain just yet, maybe you just never got the chance to summon for them, you never got lucky on them, you know, you could be in any kind of situation. With how much HP drain she does have, if you get hit with a pretty hard hitting AoE, which there are quite a few of those these days, you most likely will die. You do have the global passive, but past the first usage you won't get it again in that battle. So if your best sustain is someone like Lynx or someone like Natasha or Bailu, where Bailu can heal a lot, but with no cleanse, you know, if someone on your team gets CC'd, Bailu gets CC'd, is practically GG. So if you don't really have a sustain to actually sustain the amount of HP she drains plus the enemy hits, that's something you definitely would have considered, because, you know, it's going to be a big con in that case because you will be getting hit and dying a lot then. So if you don't have a sustain, that's going to be a part of the con section. But finally, talk about whether you should or should not summon. So starting off with first, the reasons why you should summon is if you do have the teammates ready for her and available. If you have Tribi, especially E0, E1 especially, but even at E0 is fine, that's going to be great. RMC is a free E6 and you most likely will have them. There's not really any teams that demand RMC like that. So if you do have that available, that's going to be great. And if you do have a proper sustain, like you don't have to have the best options, like you don't have to have a built Gallagher or Luotra, you can still use someone like Lingsha if you have her. If you do have the teammates ready, then it's going to be a fantastic option, as she performs really well on her best team. Having Tribi, especially at E1 with RMC and one of the best healers, is where Castorice will perform best. And if you have that ready, she's going to be a great pick that will definitely do a lot of work for you. Another reason is if you are actually in need of another DPS and you are willing to actually build around having the DPS or actually summon around having the DPS. Let's say maybe you're missing Tribi, you will summon for her for your Castorice, you are willing to do that, and you are willing to properly build the team around Castorice. If you do actually want to do that investment, she is going to be a great option for you to pick up as well. As I mentioned, Castorice does perform very well, especially with their best team. But you obviously want to consider if you already have enough DPSs for your account. If you already have a Feixiao and an Aglia team or something fully done, already able to clear the endgame modes, then you don't really need to consider another DPS. But if you are considering another DPS and you are willing to summon for her best characters, and definitely do note this, she does not have the best teammates right now. Tribi is one of them, but she still has yet to get the best sustain tailor-made towards her, which we are looking to get one in 3.3, but we will have to see. If you are willing to summon for those new characters for your Castorice, or actually get Tribi if you don't already have her for your Castorice as well, you definitely could consider her in that case, because Castorice will perform really good now if you do actually get her best characters and best teammates. And if you do actually end up getting the new characters, that will be really good for her as well. In those cases, she just becomes stronger and stronger, and she definitely will be a unit that gets stronger with time. Another thing is if you actually are willing to try for her light code, especially because I did mention she has very limited options. So if you are willing to try for a Lycon, even if you have the BP one, you can consider passing it up. But I definitely recommend still trying to get it because it is still a big jump. But maybe you can't get it if you have the BP option, or you're at least able to actually buy the Battle Pass to get the Lycon, then she's going to be an option you can use as well. Because, you know, not really having a Lycon on her and using something for base HP is kind of just yikes. So if you do have the currency or the attempt or want to actually try to get a signature Lycon, especially because she becomes so much stronger with it, and if you can't, you could still at least get the Battle Pass Lycon, then that's another thing you do want to consider as well. Now, for reasons why you shouldn't summon are practically the opposite reasons. So let's say you already maybe have Tribi, E1 Tribi even, but you are already using her on a different team. Same with someone like RMC. Maybe your RMC is still the Harmony Trailblazer, and you're still using them with Super Break, so you can't actually use RMC. Maybe you don't actually have the greatest sustain, and you don't really want to summon for any of the healer sustains. Then she's not going to be the greatest character to consider, because she still can perform well with budget options. But if you're not willing to get someone like Tribi at least, or go for any future M40s characters that may be really good for her, or if we, go back and there's a different character good for her, if you're not really willing for that, then it's not going to be a character you really want to consider, because then her damage output won't be the greatest. And so yeah, if you already have the characters but they're already being used and you don't want to actually get them the Castorice, or you are not willing to summon for any of them for the new characters that will be potentially her best teammates, or someone like Tribi especially, then Castorice would be a character you may want to consider skipping. If you may also fall into positions where you're in that case where you don't want to get her teammates, or they're already being used, and you also can't get her Lycon or actually get the Battle Pass Lycon if you're a free-to-play player, and maybe you don't even have a high HP base Lycon, best one's a 4-star, and you really can't do anything about that, you could also consider skipping in that case because her performance will be definitely nerfed by a lot. It's not only do you not have the best teammates going for her right now, you also will be using a significantly nerfed Lycone, at least until, you know, a new one comes out that may be free to play. So not being able to get a Lycone that is actually usable for her is definitely a con you want to consider. Maybe then you can consider getting her on a rerun or something instead. Or when she does first rerun in the future, there may be a Remembrance Lycone she could finally use by then. And then another thing is if you don't have a sustain that can actually heal enough to where the HP she does drain actually does not get you killed. So if you HP drain, you get the revive proc on maybe 1 or 2 characters, and then they end up dying, and then your team dies, and then you lose. You don't really want to summon for a DPS that you cannot actually sustain in battle. If you are in that case where you don't have a sustain that can keep her and the team alive, then that's another case where you definitely don't want to summon for a character like that as well. And if that is the video, that is the should you or should you not summon for Castorice. Relatively straightforward because Castorice, if you are willing to get the bit of premium side she does want, she is going to perform very, very well and is a very, very nice DPS to actually have. And even if you don't use her in the near future, you do have access to the global passive, so you get some value out of her regardless. So she is leading onto the side where a lot of people can definitely get a lot of value out of her depending on their situation. And there's not too many situations where she would be completely useless. So yeah, I hope this video actually helped you with your decision. If you guys found the video helpful, drop a like, I'd really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn the bell icon for future videos like this along with other types of Star content. That's all I want to say. Peace out.